coming up on the 70% podcast.
And I keep saying, I'm starting to say last year because we're 2022.
We're recording right now
Right.
on December 28th,
Right.
2021.
Right. And this is the last podcast for the 70% show.
That's right.
In this year. So the next time you hear us or hear our voice, which Amy will be sitting next to me at that point.
Yeah.
And
with a tan and a bikini.
I hope not in a bikini because it'd be too cold in January.
She makes me ill.
I don't want to deep dive into any of these subjects. I wanted to kind of recap. And I'm not a ritzy kind of guy. I'm from Brooklyn. Okay. Filet mignon. I don't like filet mignon.
For the audio podcast people, I'm looking at him right now. He's like, I'm from Brooklyn. Like you're coming out of it.
And I'm just silly. So it's just something fun that I do and I share with my friends.
This is
Nothing
Mommy's
crazy.
happy juice.
Yes.
You come from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. I come from Brooklyn, New York.
Right.
We're in the same studio doing the same thing at the same time.
And you're welcome. See, I defer with. I was getting uncomfortable here because you were about to compliment. Sorry, Cassie. This is how we roll.
Did you hear him say you're welcome? Did you hear the white Americans tell the
right. I'm at the studio. Well,
no, I'm
everybody
teasing.
needs to go. I know you are.
Next year, we're going to talk a little bit about diversity. We're going to talk about hate crimes. I mean, we're going to get into that next year. So hate crimes against transgenders. We're going to talk about hate crimes against. So I guess it's my turn. We talked about Nate, what you're thankful for. Cassie, what you're thankful for. I'm personally, and I wish Amy was here because I'd really like to. I know her. I guess I can't say I know her, but I know that she's thankful for a lot. Amy is very humble. And she's generous. She's just a wonderful person, and I know she's thankful for a lot. So I'm just going to throw that out there for her, and she can correct me on the next podcast.
She's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, no, I'm not humble or thankful. And
Thankful
screw
for
you,
the
Michael.
beach.
Yeah, right.
She is one of my favorite humans.
No, she's such a wonderful person. If you wake up every day and you think about the things that you are grateful for, that makes a better day. It makes your day better.
The 70% Podcast with your host, Amy Alexander and Mike Sewell.
Welcome this evening to the 70% Podcast. This is Mike Sewell. Amy Alexander is actually on vacation this evening, so she will not be joining us. But we have a good friend of mine, Cassie Donovan. How are you this evening, Cassie?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing great. So Cassie is a very good friend of mine. She is a extremely intelligent young lady, and I thought that she would be able to add to the show this evening. So here's what we're doing this evening. So since we're at the end of the year, we're not going to do any heavy conversations. We just came off of sex trafficking. We did 3 shows on that. Hopefully everybody got the basic idea of specifically what sex trafficking is, how it happens, things of that nature, so on and so forth. So we're going to try to do a light show this evening. One of the things I would like to do is kind of just recap some of the things that we've discussed this year. And then I want to go into some of the things that we're thankful for this year. So Nate's going to join us. He's going to be a integral part of this discussion this evening, along with Cassie. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about what we're going to do next year. So I'm just going to jump right into this. Cassie, Amy and I talked about critical race theory this year. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I started out talking about critical race theory, I was staunch about the fact that critical race theory needed to be taught in schools so that people understand where we're coming from as a nation, where we've come from, and then where we're going. However, as I dove more into that and started researching what's actually being taught in the school systems today, it seems as though it's being taught as people of color are at a disadvantage, and then white people should feel guilty for making them feel at a disadvantage and stuff like that. So I've kind of changed my position on that, and I think that our history as Americans need to be taught in the school system. However, it should be taught in a way that this is what happened and this is where we are at today. What are your thoughts on that, Cassie?
I agree in that aspect. So coming from more of a factual basis versus an emotional basis, I think is important because otherwise it feels like you're choosing sides.
Right.
And that doesn't feel fair no matter who we're talking about. It pits somebody against somebody else, and that doesn't really teach except to kind of create a divide.
Exactly.
So I do agree with that.
Yeah. And if we want to try to bring people together in America today, I mean, teaching a division is definitely not the way to go. What do you think, Nate?
Well, you know what I loved about where you started out with, well, what's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not teaching fill in blank?
Right.
Okay, skip all of the content. And then someone said, well, we need to not. They're trying to ban talking about fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about it is you arrived, which is part of the beauty of the show, to a balance.
Right.
It was never about let's not teach critical race theory.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't we need to, and only, here's the key, only talk about critical race theory. It was we got to come to some kind of consensus here.
Absolutely.
And that was, am I right?
Absolutely.
After all the shows?
And that's the basis of this show specifically. I mean, the 70%, what we're talking, so just to recap, the reason why Amy Alexander and I decided to start this particular podcast is because we believe that 70% of the American population, voting America adults, agree on a lot of the subjects. We don't care what race you are. We don't care how tall you are, what color you are. We just don't care. All we care about is who are we going to put in office that is going to truly care about the American people and put us in a position where we can prosper and continue to just enjoy life. You know what I mean? What do you think, Cassie?
I agree on that aspect too. I mean, I would say that the one thing I think is most people, they want to agree and, kind of live in harmony and whatnot. They're not always extremely well versed. I mean, I think a lot of our opinions are formed from sensationalized stories. And so we have to dig because otherwise we don't know the truth. We don't really understand issues at a full concept.
Right.
So I think that's important to try to achieve that balance.
No doubt. So that was one of the things that we talked about. We talked about critical race theory. We talked about reparations. We touched on that a little bit. Now, I was like Amy had, she was kind of set in her ways when it came to there should be no reparations in the beginning, and then she came around to the fact that maybe reparations should be paid. However, they should be paid in a certain manner. And for me,
fiscally responsible.
Correct.
That's Amy to a T.
Exactly.
I'm not putting words in her mouth.
No.
Her.
She has an accountant background.
Absolutely.
And she wants to make sure that the monies are going to the proper place in order to be used properly. And for me, it was more about education. Mm-hmm. Okay. It was more about saying, reparations. So here's the deal. Biden wants to pay $450,000 to people who have been separated at the border. Okay. So we're talking about illegal aliens being separated at the border. So they're coming across the country or coming across the border illegally. They're being separated from their family. And now Biden says that, hey, we need to pay them $450,000. However, we still have not paid the African Americans any reparations for being separated, from slavery. Okay. So my thought was, okay, let's pay the reparations. However, let's pay it in the form of education rather than saying here, to the foundational Black Americans, here's $450,000 or $500,000 or whatever you want to call it, and say, here, take this money and put it in your pocket, and now you can go ahead and spend it any way you want. It's my belief that when you give people who have not had X amount of dollars, whatever it may be, typically they're going to lose that money and still be in the same position in a year or 2 years from now, in the position that they're in right now, in poverty or again. However, if you empower them, you teach them how to use that money, how to properly spend that money and or invest, then you're empowering those people to excel and to grow generational wealth, as most, or not most, let me rephrase that, as a lot of white Americans have been able to do today. So Cassie, Nate, chime in, tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Go ahead, Cassie.
Yeah, well, I understand your take on that, Mike. I think it seems a bit unfair to try to tell someone else what to do with money that we'd be giving them. I don't know that I'd agree with that. How could we dictate what someone does with said money? What was the money supposed to be for? I mean, forgive me for not knowing much about that.
No, it's fine. I'm kind of throwing you in the hot seat here and just, saying, hey, Cassie, come in and talk to us, So here's the deal. So when we talked about reparations, you know what they are. I mean, foundational Black Americans have been talking about reparations for many years. And basically what that is saying, hey, look, we have our ancestors helped to build America to where it is today, and we were cut out of the equation in many different ways. When we came out of slavery, we were, sent into many different cities throughout the United States and not giving anything to excel and or to provide for ourselves. And then Black Wall Street was burned down, things of that nature. So you have all of these types of situations where foundational Black Americans have been kind of held down basically in America. So reparations are being paid or are suggested to be paid for the foundational Black Americans in the United States in order to equalize the disparity between the generational wealth. Okay. So with that being said though, however, if you just give people that, and I'm not saying that foundational Black Americans don't know what to do with the money. That's not what I'm saying at all. Okay. I'm an African American myself. If we could go through my history.
Good to clarify that. Yeah,
right. If we go through my
audio podcast. Yeah.
Right. If we go through my history, I mean, I'm Italian and this, that, and the other. So there's a lot. I'm kind of a mutt, But foundational Black Americans. If you go through basically what I'm trying to say is that when you give people who have not had the opportunity to grow that generational wealth, the opportunity to have X amount of dollars just all at one time, typically they're not going to know how to invest and or to build off of that. Okay?
I think, Mike, I think it was like episode 2, maybe when we covered this, and those of you listening, make sure you go back and free plug.
Absolutely.
But I think where we went with was we kind of came to a consensus once again that it was the lottery effect. When you give someone who is not built wealth,
who hasn't had wealth. Right.
I'm talking psychologically.
Yeah, no doubt. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter where your background. It doesn't matter whether you're white, Black, Chinese, Asian, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right, and that was your concern. That was your main impetus for the
exactly.
argument.
I want the foundational Black Americans to be successful, and in order to do that, I think it's more about education rather than just giving their money. So, to your point, Cassie, you said that okay, we shouldn't say that basically, here's your money and here's what you need to do with it. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that we need to, instead of just handing a lump sum of cash, maybe hand the cash with some education. Does that make sense, Cassie, or am I,
Yeah, like hand in hand. Like it wouldn't just be used towards an education and that's it. Maybe make something conditional with an educational approach or introduction of some sort. Is that what you're getting at?
Right. So even if we said here, okay, so we're going to give every foundational Black American in the United States $400, say $500,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to qualify for that $500,000, you have to take a class on finances and how to invest those finances and how to build wealth and things of that nature. You have to at least have a foundation, basically, in finance in order to be able to receive that money. So you have to take a 2-week course, I don't know. I don't. There, like Tracy said, there are a lot smarter people out there than I am that can figure out how to do this.
Read our guest from episode 4 or 5.
Right. Yep. Tracy, thank you very much, Tracy, also for being on the show. We truly appreciate that.
No, I can see Cassie's pushback though.
No, I get that.
Because for some reason, I'm just thinking out loud here. There was something immediately I recoiled once we said, "Okay, here we go. Here's your money. However, here's what you need to do with it." Am I wrong, Cassie?
Right. Yeah. It has a feeling of just dictating something, which is, I mean, really not what America is supposed to be founded on, to be honest. But I understand the concern, like, hey, we want to make sure that that this is used and put to good use, but at the same time, it feels very conditional.
And I don't think it's a matter of, from my opinion, it's not a matter of here's the money, put it to good use. However, here's the money and here's how to use it. Right.
I could get behind something, a shorter term sense like you were talking about. When you first brought it up, I thought you meant, hey, here's lump sum of money. It can be used towards education. And that felt a bit pointed. Yeah. But I absolutely would understand, you know what, here's the money. Let us give you some ideas. Let us teach you something. And then you can decide, what you want to do. No problem. It's not bad.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So most Americans, it's not that it's, I'm just recapping to put a cap on it. I think during that episode, I think one of Amy's points, I hate speaking for Amy.
No. Go ahead and speak for Amy. She's not here. Let's talk for her.
Let's speak for Amy. I love doing
We'll let her figure it out in the new year.
I think how much to whom?
Right.
And that's a valid question for the American population.
And see that
was her point.
Yeah, her
point
was
very valid.
So we're talking about people of color, and I'm putting that in quotations. So we're talking about when we talk about people of color, there's a lot of people of color in the United States that have not gone through, their ancestors have not gone through slavery. Okay, so to Tracy's point, Tracy,
yes, one of our good friends and favorite guests, Tracy Robertson.
Tracy's point that she was on the I think show 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was 4.
Yeah. So anyway, to Tracy's point, she was saying that the foundational, okay, and that's the key word here.
Yeah.
Foundational Black Americans. So those who were their ancestors were enslaved at one point or another. Okay, those who helped to build America. Those are the people who should receive reparations. And I'm just hoping I'm part of that, because when that
clarify.
comes down, I
Yeah.
want my hat.
Well, I noticed there's something in it for Mike.
All right. I need to stop being silly. Okay.
Oh, that's how we roll on this show. We
No doubt.
defer deflection with comedy.
All right. So we talked about reparations. That was one of the, so we talked about critical race theories. That was one of the subjects on the show. You know, we kind of touched on that. We talked about reparations. That was one of the subjects of last year. And I keep saying, I'm starting to say last year, because we're 2022.
We're recording right now,
Right.
on December 28th,
Right.
2021.
Right. And this is the last podcast for the 70% show.
That's right.
In this year.
That's right.
So the next time you hear us or hear our voice, which Amy will be sitting next to me at that point.
Yeah.
And
with a tan and a bikini.
I hope not in a bikini, because it'd be too cold in
She
January.
makes me ill. We're sitting here, and Mike was running late because of we have a little snowstorm, a tiny one, and she's sitting there sending photos from a beautiful beach. So
I know.
Shout out to Amy.
Yeah, we were a little bit behind schedule today. I think we were 15 minutes behind schedule this
We
season.
are on whatever time you are.
There you go. I don't know why
Always
you're saying
remember
that so softly, though, Nate. You're starting to scare me.
It was supposed to be poignant.
Oh, God. Cassie, you okay over there?
I'm good. I'm just hanging out, drinking my water, listening to you talk about.
Water? Where's your wine at? So, Nate.
I know.
Nate, Cassie does an Advent wine, not podcast. What is it, Cassie?
Plug your show.
No, she does it every year, okay, and she's been doing this for the last couple of years now. She does an Advent wine. Cassie,
Just
you talk
review.
about it.
Yeah. Well, it started off as an Advent wine review because Aldi sells an Advent wine calendar, and Costco.
Okay,
too,
what is
so,
Aldi's for our list? Because Cassie, we have gone global.
Mm-hmm.
We have gone global, so we need to explain what Aldi is.
Well, Aldi started off as kind of the generic store where you could get things at a bargain price. I don't know, 20, 30 years. I don't even know, a long time ago. And it's kind of evolved into a store where you can get good bargains, but also where things are, you can get organic things, non-GMO things, a lot of different healthy things. So it's just a grocery chain. I guess I didn't realize it was localized, but that's Aldi. And then Costco, everybody knows Costco. It's like a discount warehouse.
Yep.
But they both have wine Advent calendars. So, each day in December leading up into Christmas, you open up a little box, pull out a bottle of wine, and that's what it is. So,
okay.
Aldi was, I think, one glass servings. Costco was about double the size. But so my deal is, I realized I hate wine. Most wine. And this is like, I mustered through the first week, and I'm like, I can't do it. Everything was a dry red. Like, how many red blends could they possibly have? But they had a lot. So I actually had my mom go to a liquor store, and I said, hey, Mom, go find some interesting things. Chocolate chip martinis, a mixed drink, whatever. But get things that don't suck and wrap them up. And so I've actually been unwrapping those each day instead of the wine because
really?
So I have a lot of wine.
I have
a lot left over.
I must have missed that. I didn't see that. I didn't see those shows. Okay, I need to go back and take a look at that. So Cassie, first off, I don't. If you haven't seen it, you need to look at it. Cassie, what is your channel? What is your handle out there?
Plug it.
Oh, I don't even have a channel. This is just me being silly on Facebook. Once in a while, I'll put something on YouTube. But I will let you know when I organize myself.
Okay. No doubt. Okay, so Nate, quite
Cassie's
honestly,
amazing.
it's
I like her
no,
already.
seriously. I look at those and sometimes I respond to them, sometimes I don't. So, when I say respond, I throw a like or a heart or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
But forget about it. Okay, she is extremely not only educational when it comes to the first off, I'm like Cassie. I don't like wine. I don't like wine at all. Like dry. I've tried red. I've tried white. I've tried sweet. I've tried dry. I've tried all kinds of wine. I am not a wine guy. Okay, I'm just not. And I don't have a palate for it. And I'm not a ritzy kind of guy. I'm from Brooklyn. Okay. Filet mignon. I don't like filet mignon.
For the audio podcast people, I'm looking at him right now. He's like, I'm from Brooklyn. Like you're going out of it.
Wagyu steak. It's not my thing. I like my steak to fight back. You know what I mean? I want a T-bone or ribeye or something like that. So anyway, basically, I understand exactly what Cassie is saying when she says she's not into the wine thing. So tell us real quick. Okay, tell us a little bit about what your mother has done for you, Cassie, and how that has worked out.
So she has found a bunch of interesting things that she knows I would enjoy. Flavorful things, alcohol, hard liquor.
Let's mention that we are in Wisconsin, so that's the alcohol capital of the United States. Yeah.
Right. And she's wrapped them up, and so each day, towards the end of the evening, my little guy, I've got a son, a 5-year-old. He's like, let's open the drink, Mom.
Go on up over there, little one. Mom, open up mommy's booze. We just try to. Well, he opens it, and I try different things, and enjoy them or don't enjoy them, and I'm just silly. So it's just something fun that I do and I share with my friends. This is
nothing
mommy's
crazy.
Happy juice.
Yes.
No,
and she gives a good
juice box.
She makes it lively and funny and
we got to see this now.
Yeah, forget about it. What we'll do is we'll bring her into the studio one day with her wine. And we'll just kind of talk about it.
And we'll have like Jenny or somebody put that
something
underneath. So
no
your
doubt.
Facebook is going to explode here.
Yeah, we'll do that one day.
You got it.
Yeah.
Do some blind taste testing for everybody.
I like it. All right. So another thing that we talked about last year, and I'm saying last year because we are very close to 2022. So another thing that we talked about is equity versus equality.
That was a good episode.
That was a tough episode. Like
that was a lot of changing minds.
Forget about it. To try to explain, to try to understand equity, and versus equality.
Sure, and we did the definition of equity, which is equality of opportunity versus and most people. I didn't know this. Equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome is typically the two parallel sentences that come up.
Right. And that was one of the things that stumped. I mean, and I'm not saying that I'm a scholar or anything like that, but it stumped me. I'm like, okay, equity, equality, and I'm kind of on the fence there, It
sounds good, right? You say equity and you go, oh yeah,
right. So what should we have?
Who the hell wouldn't be?
For people in the United States, should we have equity or should we have equality? Here's the thing with equality, not everybody wants to be equal. Not everybody wants to, be a multimillionaire. Some people are happy with not having millions and millions of dollars, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And some people are happy with having millions and millions of dollars, and there's nothing wrong with that as well.
Our country was founded on, if I'm not mistaken, on the I have opportunity to go forward with, you know what I'm saying?
With whatever my dreams.
It just don't get in my way.
Exactly.
That's basically the American way.
Exactly.
Don't get in my way.
Exactly.
And then there's equity. And that kind of the definition. I don't know, Cassie, what do you think? I mean, we can listen to the podcast and replay it. We have Cassie on here, the wonderful wine lady. You do it.
You got it. Well, equity, I mean, it's mainly meant to address, imbalanced social systems. So that doesn't always end up with justice, right? There's actually a meme. Have you ever seen this meme of an apple tree and two people on opposing sides of it? I've seen it a bunch of times. but it kind of addresses, inequality versus equality versus equity versus justice. It's something that, I will send to you because it puts everything kind of in a picture format, and it really helps explain some of this to people. So
yeah, give us a visual, Cassie, to help us out here.
All right, so there is an apple tree, right? And there are two people on each side of the apple tree. The apple tree is leaning far over to one side, right? So that's inequality. When there's unequal access to opportunities, right?
Correct.
It's all the apples are falling on one side. One person gets tons of them. The other is left with nothing.
Sure.
Gotcha.
Then there's equity. And in that picture, each person has a ladder, right? One person has a short ladder because the tree is leaning towards them. They can reach it more easily. And the other person has a taller ladder, so they can also reach it. Equity is custom tools that identify and address that inequality, right?
Okay.
Gotcha.
Then equality is supposed to be, so equality shows the same size ladder on each sides of the tree. So that's evenly distributed tools and assistance, right? Each person gets the same thing. But the thing is, it still doesn't help one person because the tree is farther up.
Gotcha.
And then there's justice. And that's fixing the system to offer equal access to both tools and opportunities. And so that is actually taking the tree, right, and kind of tying it down so it's not leaning so far over to one side anymore. It's now in the middle.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of different ways to think of it, but I guess I think, equality is really, everyone having the same thing,
Right.
but some people are farther ahead. They can reach that apple tree because of the things they already have.
Right. And that's when we talk about generational wealth. We're talking about the, let's call them foundational white Americans who have foundational wealth. They have generational wealth. Okay. So they have been in a situation where their great grandparents who owned land, who owned property, who has passed that down from generation to generation, and then when it comes to foundational Black Americans who have not had that same opportunity. Am I hearing that correctly, Cassie, or did I miss the point?
You got it.
Here's my thing. I was born. Okay, so and we've talked about this before, and there's several podcasts where you'll hear me say where I originated from. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I spent several years in my high school years in the Northern California, the Oakland, Richmond, California area, and mostly the and I'm putting this in quotations, the ghettos of the United States. Okay, for me to be able to. And I know Jenny is going to kill me for this because she always says just because you could do it doesn't mean everybody else can do it. But for me to be able to make it out of those harsh, situations and to achieve, the amount of success that I've been blessed to be able to achieve these days, I really don't feel as though everyone can't do this. The United States is set up in a situation so that if you want it, you can have it if you choose to have it. Am I wrong, Cassie? Nate, tell me,
you're
am I
not wrong? No, but the thing is, Mike, it's probably harder for you than it is for many people. It's harder for some people than it is for others. It does not mean they can't make it.
Okay, so
it does not mean it's impossible.
You're saying it's harder for me because I'm African American? Is that why you're saying it's harder?
In general, compared to yeah, compared to your average white person, you probably have to work a little bit harder. I think anybody would.
And quite honestly, Cassie, I'm going to be like extremely candid here. I have not felt that. I have not felt as though.
Well, how can you compare yourself, what you've already done, to something you haven't done, though?
So you're saying that
you just have a strong work ethic.
You're saying that if my work ethic was in a white body, then I would be further ahead than I am right now. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. But there are probably some hurdles that you would go through that your average white person would find a little bit easier. But how would you know that necessarily? Because you're yourself. But that's one of the biggest things with equality and equity.
See, it's too ethereal. It's too, we're guessing. And that's, I think, what we've come to terms with on this podcast.
Exactly.
It's too vague.
Right.
Even though it sounds concrete. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I don't think.
Here's the thing, Nate.
It's
you and I are sitting in the same studio. You come from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. I come from Brooklyn, New York.
Right.
We're in the same studio doing the same thing at the same time.
And you're welcome. See, I defer I was getting uncomfortable here because you were about to compliment. Sorry, Cassie. This is how we roll.
Did you hear him say you're welcome? Did you hear the white Americans tell the black?
Right. I'm at the studio. Well,
I'm teasing.
I know you are.
I'm being
so do I. We have the same person. Anyway, yeah, keep going with that. I'm sorry.
I get what you're saying, Cassie, but I'm just not sold on it. I'm just not.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
You say you're guessing because you've decided there's nothing concrete. Have either of you really looked into it and tried to find different resources instead of just a guess?
I can only go off of my experiences, to be perfectly honest with you.
That's
now,
fair.
I know I have several black, or let me rephrase that, foundational Black Americans, friends in Northeast Wisconsin who concur with my assessment.
Okay.
We have had long discussions. These are guys that I get together with, once a week or once every 2 weeks. We sit down, we have discussions on what we're going through, what we've been through, things of that nature. They don't feel as though they've been oppressed. I understand that there are some situations in the United States where people of color have been oppressed or treated indifferently. Just here in Northeast Wisconsin, I don't see it, and the African Americans who I associate with here in Northeast Wisconsin, have not felt the same thing. And I don't know. And I tell everybody this. Now I have a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine who lives in Chicago now, and she explains to me all the time that, Mike, you've been blessed because you haven't had those experiences. However, there are people in the city that you live in, and also here in Chicago, that have had those experiences. Sure. And so I understand that it happens. I just don't think it's as widespread as the mainstream media would make it out to be.
Okay, but that's also coming from a very small sample size.
No doubt. I agree.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess I would say before, just on a personal level, before coming to a conclusion, maybe try to look into something like that to see how more widespread it could be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a guess.
You're correct. You're correct. And maybe that's something that we can dive into next year. We're coming up on the end of the year, and I really didn't want to get into a lot of deep discussions. I just wanted to kind of stave over some of the different discussions that we've had. But you bring up a very good point, and as we dive into this next year, I definitely want to bring you back in on this discussion.
Awesome.
Some of the things that we've also talked about was the Ridding House. We talked about Ridding House. Now,
oh boy, yeah, we did.
Here, Nate. Here's the thing: when I first started looking at this case, I said that Ridding House brought a firearm across state lines, and he used that firearm to protect himself, quote unquote, against people who were trying to harm him. And at the very least, he should be prosecuted for bringing that firearm across state lines. I was incorrect in that assessment. I was incorrect in that statement, because it turns out that his father lives in Kenosha. Is it Kenosha or is it Racine?
Kenosha.
Kenosha. Okay. So his father lives in Kenosha, and he came across state lines. However, he went to his father's house. He took the firearm from the Kenosha household, and he went down to protect the businesses in Kenosha. And Amy and I put together a group here in Green Bay to protect the businesses downtown Green Bay. Thank God we didn't have to go down there to help out, to do anything about that.
Sure, it wasn't a militia of some sort. It was just concerned citizens protecting property.
Here's the thing. I'm from Brooklyn, okay? My home is not Green Bay, Wisconsin. My home, like in my heart, is Brooklyn, New York, okay? However, I live here in Northeast Wisconsin. I'm not going to allow people, Antifa, or any other outsiders to come to Green Bay, Wisconsin and start tearing up this city in the name of social justice, okay? We don't have, do we have a problem here in Green Bay with racism and things of that nature? Possibly. Possibly, okay? Because I've heard it happen, from people that I associate with have said that there's an issue. There's a small, there's an issue.
Like Cassie said, we'd have to look at the larger sample size. We'd have to look at the numbers.
No doubt.
We're not social psychologists or police officers or anything.
Exactly. However, I'm still not going to allow people to come into my city and destroy it. Okay? So we put together a group of people, just like Ridding House did. He went down to protect the property of the people that lived in that city. Once I watched the videos, I concluded that I would not have been as composed as he was in order to just fire upon the people that were attacking him to protect myself. Okay? That's how I feel right now.
Like
I'm not in the heat.
Know until
no doubt. Cassie, what do you think? I'm not in the heat in the moment. I don't know the situation.
Mm-hmm.
However, I still think that the jury were correct in their assessment of acquitting him on those charges. What are your thoughts?
I absolutely agree with that. When I first, heard of what had happened and saw a social media video, it was only a partial clip, and it showed the aftermath, of something. It showed people chasing and saying he shot somebody, and a mob going after him, and then him attacking, not attacking, excuse me, firing in response to that. But there was a whole beginning that we didn't see at first, that I feel like a lot of people didn't see either. There's several videos, several different points of view, and I feel like what the media, did, they took both points of view and sensationalized them. And, people don't do their own research. And if they didn't watch the trial and hear these things and see the examples and hear the testimonies, unfortunately, I don't think they should be taking sides, because that's not, a complete picture.
Exactly.
And I think Rittenhouse, he was being chased and it was dark and someone was coming at him, and yes, he was armed and he had, he had someone coming at him. I would be terrified. I would feel like my life was in danger.
Forget about
what I mean? He thought he was cornered and fired back to protect himself. And the worst thing that could have happened. And then he ran away. And again, a mob of people, someone coming at him with a gun. And the guy even said, Rittenhouse only shot after the gun was pointed at Rittenhouse's head. I mean, I'd be terrified. I'm surprised he kept his composure too.
Mm-hmm. At 17 years old.
Right.
To be able to run from a mob of people who are saying, kill him, catch him, blah, 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 and to only fire. So you're laying on the ground. Your firearm is pointed towards these people, and you're only firing upon those who actively are attacking you, is a hell of a lot more than I truly believe that I could have done at that time. Same.
Absolutely. I don't think I would have been able to compose myself at all. I'm shocked that he did. And, hearing half truths and the media kind of taking a story and running with it, that really just puts an idea, a story in someone's head. And that's what they run with, no unless they're watching the trial and hearing the different things that they missed.
Let me ask you a question. Speaking of that, what do you think about the media today? Like, do you think the media is balanced news as they try to portray, or do you think that they are swayed in one way or the other?
Not at all. I mean, they're looking for a story. They're looking for a story, and I mean, that's how they stay in business.
And what is that
who's
story?
Watching, who's viewing? Whatever the people want.
Yeah. And specifically,
whatever the people want to hear.
In my opinion, the story typically leans towards whatever is going to divide the masses, specifically white and people of color in the United States.
I can see that. Whatever the drama is, I mean, if people are going to talk about it, the media is going to report on it.
No doubt.
And they're going to choose a side. I feel like very rare to see balanced coverage nowadays.
I agree.
It's work.
I agree. So I'm going to sum it up right there. I'm sorry to cut you off. I truly apologize.
You're good.
I just didn't want to get into, I don't want to deep dive into any of these subjects. I wanted to kind of recap some of the subjects that we've gone over this year, which is critical race theory, equity versus equality. We talked about reparations. We talked about the Rittenhouse case. The last thing that we spoke about was human trafficking. I don't know if you caught that episode or not, but the last thing that we discussed was human trafficking. And, one of the things that there was a friend of mine who brought up a subject about human trafficking that kind of made me stutter step. He made me stop and think a little bit. There are people who actively involve themselves in human trafficking willingly. So it's not necessarily that they involve themselves in, quote unquote, human trafficking, but they decide to themselves that, hey, I'm going to be a call girl or a prostitute or a, pimp or whatever, so let's just take Las Vegas, for example, or Nevada, for example, I should say. It's legal in Nevada to be a prostitute. people who go to Nevada to engage in those businesses, or whatever, they decide that, hey, this is what I'm going to engage in, this is who I'm going to be, and this is what I want to, and they make a hell of a lot more money than I make annually. Okay. So what he said to me was like, Mike, how do you differentiate the people who, I guess what he was saying, so what we did was we put sex trafficking in such a broad spectrum that we're not basically taking out the child trafficking from the people who decide that this is the career that I chose.
And it started with the trial, from the Jeffrey Epstein saga trial that was top of mind. It brought it up. We talked to a former conservative talk show host, Bill LeMay. Which we still have the lost tapes. That's going to be fun in 2022. But it led into Sergeant Wilson from the Brown County Sex and Human Trafficking.
Real quick, Bill, Sergeant, I truly appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you very much.
Paula was the
Paula,
cap.
Paula
she's
was
the one who said. Paula was the one who pointed out this is like
Michalski.
Drugs.
I hope I said that right.
You notice how I skirted the word?
Right.
Yeah.
Michalski.
But Paula was the one who pointed out that, to your point, Michael, is that it's a drug that you can sell. It just happens to be human.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it was the most.
And you could sell it.
It was the heaviest.
It
was the heaviest 3 episodes we've ever done on the show.
It. Oh my God!
It haunted me. Some of the stories and everything. Anyway, Cassie, what are your thoughts?
I feel like human trafficking. It's really only trafficking if someone's forced or coerced into it. Other than that, I mean, sex job or people in Las Vegas. I mean, if they want to do that and people want to buy, I mean, then I wouldn't say it's career choice that I'd be comfortable with personally, but I wouldn't consider that trafficking.
We continue to lump all of that together, and that's what's whitewashing the whole industry, and that's why people are not talking about it. Because we lumped it all together rather than separating it out.
Consensuality, maybe that's your point, Cassie. Consensuality versus, I mean, these are almost two entirely different topics. With Sergeant Wilson, Paula, and Bill LeMay's point was that the horrors of, and it's happening, and we kept mentioning it again and again, this is almost like a movie that happens far, far away. It couldn't possibly happen in a small town like Green Bay, Wisconsin, or in Raleigh, North Carolina, in a city, that size and things like that. No, it happens, and we don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. But, I mean, some of the details, it was almost two different things, like Vegas legalized prostitution versus children as young as what did Sergeant Wilson say? As young as like 6 or 7. I mean, just haunt as a father, and Michael, you're a father. I don't care. You're a human. Listening to that, you're just, what is happening?
You're horrified.
Oh, it's a horror show that no one is talking about. Well, not no one, but you know what I mean. Not enough.
Right. And the weird thing is too, you mentioned not a lot of people are talking about that. I agree. They're two very different issues. So if they're lumped together, that's a problem. Absolutely. But yeah, it happens in small towns, and it's almost like it disappears. I went to school with a guy who was a principal in Wisconsin and had a family and, all these wonderful things in his career happened. And all of a sudden, he was involved in child sex trafficking. And all of a sudden the story disappeared. I don't know what happened to it.
Race and sexuality are pretty taboo in this country. Like, you don't want to talk about those things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's terrifying.
And the moment you do, it's hey, hush, don't talk about that.
Right.
Sex is private. We keep it out of the public sector and sphere. You're not going to get elected if you talk about anything like, you know what I'm saying? You're going to get canceled unless it's, and then on the opposite side, unless it's just prurient sexuality and selling sex, it's one or the other, but the rest in the middle are just, we're not going to discuss this because it's uncomfortable. I have a daughter. You do too. I don't want to talk about.
I have 2 daughters.
A teenage little girl, you know. Ugh.
Yeah, no doubt.
No, it was the ickiest.
Well,
but
Cassie
most important.
has a daughter as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think your daughter is as old as my daughter, right, Cassie? They're both the same, 16 years old?
16 and a half. Yeah.
And it was the
She's
boys.
got pepper spray and
forget about it. Forget about it. Brass knuckles and a gun and
pepper spray, baby. She's almost 19 and she still has the pepper spray.
No doubt.
Yeah.
All right. So those are some of the things that we talked about this year. Next year, we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about diversity. We're going to talk about hate crimes. I mean, we dived into that just a little bit last year, but we're going to really, we're going to get into that next year. So, hate crimes against transgenders. We're going to talk about hate crimes against, different color.
What does it mean? Some people say, is there such a thing? It's either a crime or it's not. What's the definition? What's the line of demarcation between a crime and a hate crime?
Exactly. And here's, I'm just going to touch on this real quick. In my opinion, when you talk about crime in general, it's a crime. Whether it doesn't matter who it's against. Okay? And they should all be treated equally. But we'll talk about that again next year, okay? And we're going to talk about Let's Go Brandon next year.
The race car driver? Awesome. I love it.
We're going to dive into that a little bit more. And we're going to talk about white supremacy next year. Mm-hmm. We're going to dive into that. So here's the thing.
Conversation.
Nate, here's the thing. In my opinion, white supremacy is not as prevalent as it used to be in the United States. However,
how dare you?
We'll save that for next year. What are your thoughts, Cassie?
I'm interested. I can't wait to hear more about all of this stuff.
I love it. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about slavery next year. So before we end this show, Nate, I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, pop question.
Yeah. 2021.
Yeah.
We've had a long, hard year. Okay. Yes. We came off of COVID in 2020.
Yep. You're a survivor of COVID.
Yeah, I did go through it.
Yeah.
I am a survivor. I have the
pretty sure I was.
Antibodies
my family
right now.
had it, yeah.
No doubt. So 2021, what are you thankful for this year, Nate? Like, don't just give me the
no.
And I'm not being racist by saying this. I'm not going to say whitewashed or whatever. Give me the true, like, what are you truly thankful for this year, Nate?
Yeah, and this is unrehearsed as I clear my throat and buy time. It's an old trick.
So Cassie gets a lot of time to think about.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
She's right. I can just see it through the board right now.
All right. So now
there's
I bought
smoke
you some
coming out.
I bought
from
you some
her,
time. Let's go, Nate.
All right. Of course, I'm thankful for the fact that my wife, my daughter, my family and friends are healthy. You know, when you experience, and I hope no one does, and those that have, you can relate when you have a terminally ill parent pass away. And I know it's been, 5 years now, but I still think about her and at the tail end. Right. And I never forgot that, watching her body betray her is the best way. My mother seems like, I always say it this way, my mother seems like a really wonderful, fantastic dream, and I woke up when she died, And so that was the first thing that struck me as soon as you asked me that question was health. And I probably should be, and every year we get to do a do-over. Actually, every day we get to do a do-over.
No doubt.
But I want to take better care of myself. That's kind of not to do the resolution thing, but every year I kind of, that's what the end of the year is, I think, for humans, is sort of a reflection, just like this show. So anyway, that's me waxing eloquent about what I'm grateful for. Health, that everybody's upright. We're all good.
Wonderful. Quick question before we move on to Cassie. Next year, what do you hope for?
I hope to continue to do this. When I started Dizzy Course, where we're at, this is Dizzy Course Studios, where this wonderful show takes place. It started on a kind of a whim, kind of a dare from my other buddies, radio pals. I want to develop shows. I was always 1 foot in the door of academia. I was always 1 foot in the door of a radio station studio, and we finally have the technology to do both. And so, and that's hence all of and it's hard work, and who knows, if it's going to succeed, but I really do. I look forward to the next year of shows and watching, to be honest, not to be condescending, but watching you and Amy grow on this show as broadcasters. I always knew you guys were interesting and wonderful humans, but I love it. I love watching other people flourish. So that's my 2 cents.
I love it. Cassie?
2 things I am thankful for. I would say the first is, I was watching a show called Midnight Mass on Netflix. If you haven't seen it,
explain it to
wonderful
us real
show.
Quick. Give us a quick.
Midnight Mass. It basically, talks about kind of religion and afterlife. And there were 2 really moving speeches that talked about death, what happens when we die. And they're only a couple minutes long a piece. One is, I don't know, somewhere, midway in the series, and the other is at the very, very tail end. I think it ends. And it's, 2 characters, and they had asked each other, what do you think happens when we die? And their speeches, really moved me and, got me thinking things that I've already thought, but they put it so wonderfully into words. And ever since then, I'm really wrestling with just existence in general, and what happens when we die. And I can just tell you, not to go on and on, one thing I'm really, really thankful for, no matter what anybody believes, is just that I exist. Mm-hmm. That's it. Just me and my family, that we're here at all, that I was made, that I can think.
The age-old human question.
Yeah.
Why are we here? Yes.
Forget about it. I mean, if you think about the vast universe, okay, and I'm not going to try to get too deep here. Mm-hmm. But if you think about the universe and how vast it is, how big it is, right, in comparison to us, I mean, we're kind of ants. Even smaller than that.
An ant.
Correct.
A follicle.
In comparison right, to the universe.
Sure. It doesn't help, though, with my day, Mike. And that's the human dilemma, right?
I mean, we always think we're so much bigger than what we truly are.
Well, that's all we know.
If you just look at the earth in general and think about the speck that we are as human beings on this planet, and then expand that to our solar system, and then to the universe, and then to the multi-universe. I mean, forget about it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We become right, so insignificant. So I get what you're saying, Cassie.
Right. Trying to love the most while I'm here and appreciate it, because I think so many of us forget. So just really trying to appreciate it and knowing that this is not going to last forever.
No doubt.
That's that's, one of the biggest things I'm thankful for. And then the other thing is that I have a home and that I'm warm and I'm comfortable. We have homeless people that we pass by in stores and on the street and in churches and in libraries. And a lot of times, people don't even realize they're passing someone who doesn't have a home. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. I spent Thanksgiving in California and with my youngest daughter, Olivia, and I don't think she's seen it as I did, because I grew up in my high school years, okay, in my formative years, I grew up in California. And the amount of homeless people that are living in their tents and campers and stuff on the side of the road, you don't see that here in Northeast Wisconsin. You don't see that. But there are people that are literally living in tents in California on the side of the road, right off the highway as you're driving by.
Can I ask you, what did Olivia say to you?
And that's
Dad, did she just look at you like, Dad, what's is this for real?
No, she the sad part about it is I don't think she really truly understood the magnitude of what was happening. She grew up in an area where she doesn't see stuff like that.
It's the silent and hidden,
right,
in the shadows.
Right.
Yeah.
So when she was able to see it, I don't think it really hit home for her. I don't think she recognized it. However, I came from that environment, but there weren't that many homeless people when I came to Wisconsin. And to go back to that environment and see that many homeless people was to me was shocking. It was forget about it. Anyway, long story short, to come back
topic for an entire
we need to tackle. That's another subject that we need to tackle here on the 70% podcast, the homelessness in the United States. So I guess it's my turn. We talked about Nate, what you're thankful for. Cassie, what you're thankful for. I'm personally, and I wish Amy was here because I'd really like to. I know her. I guess I can't say I know her, but I know that she's thankful for a lot. Amy is very humble, and she's generous. She's just a wonderful person, and I know she's thankful for a lot. So I'm just going to throw it out there for her, and she can correct me on the next podcast.
She's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, no, I'm not humble or thankful. And
thankful
screw
for
you,
the
Michael.
beach.
No.
Yeah, right.
She is one of my favorite humans.
No, she's such a wonderful person. So personally, I'm thankful, and I have to say this. I'm thankful for my children. Okay, so one of the things that I do every morning, let me rephrase that. One of the things that I try to do every morning is wake up and discuss what I'm thankful for. Now, I'm a Christian, okay? So I call myself a Christian because I believe in the foundations of Christianity, okay? Not because I'm a Bible-thumping kind of Christian that beats you over the head of, you're wrong because you're gay or this, that, the other. That's not the guy I am. I believe in what Christ said, to love everyone as I have loved the church, which is to die for the church, okay? I believe in love thy neighbor, period, okay?
Right.
So, as such, one of the things I do is when I wake up in the mornings, I thank my maker, I thank God, and that's what I believe in, okay? So if you believe in Buddha or Allah or whatever, it's fine. I don't care, whatever. I believe in God. I thank God for everything that I have, everything that I am, and I thank God for my children. I thank God for the things that I have in life, the materialistic things that I have in life. I thank God for my being, who I am as a person, my education. When I say education, I'm not talking about the traditional education that you get from school system. I'm talking about the learned education that I got from life, the wisdom that I have achieved.
Wisdom is a great word. Yep.
Right, that I have achieved from living the life that I have lived. You know, I come from a situation where I wasn't. I'm not supposed. If you look at it from a statistical standpoint, okay, from being a foundational Black American, I'm supposed to be dead or in jail. Coming from Brooklyn, New York, and Oakland, California, I'm supposed to be dead or in jail if you based it on statistics. So I thank God for not being in that situation and being able to raise my children in an environment that they're able to succeed and grow and prosper and have what I didn't have as a child. You know what I mean? I grew up in a situation where I didn't have parents that guided me in what's right or wrong. Don't get me wrong. My mother did the best she could with what she had. Okay, she was a wonderful woman, and she did everything that she could to raise two boys who were not great kids.
Sorry, Mom.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not her fault. It's just that she didn't have the tools to give us what we should have had, quote unquote, in growing up. So I thank God for all of those things. And so in 2021, I have been able to leave my full-time job that I had. So I thank God for that. And become a full-time realtor, and I thank God for that. To help the customers, to help the people that I've been able to help throughout the year to succeed and to achieve their dreams, I thank God for those situations as well. So that's my thankfulness for the year.
You have an attitude of gratitude.
Yes. I try to wake up with that every day.
Thank you for reminding me. I shall do that every day.
I forget. Here's the thing,
more.
Nate. One of the things that we forget to do, there's so many things to complain about.
Oh yeah.
It's Cassie, chime in here and tell me if I'm wrong. There's so many things to complain about in this world. I mean, every day something's going to happen that you can complain about.
It's the default position of the human brain for some reason.
No doubt.
Right.
However, if you wake up every day and you think about the things that you are grateful for, that makes a better day. It makes your day better. Just to think about the things that you are grateful for that day prior to starting the day. So when those stressors come to you throughout the day, because they're going to come, you're going to have days where you're not feeling the greatest. You're going to have days where your health is not the greatest. You're going to have days where people in general are trying. You're going to have but when you start out the day being grateful for the things that you have, forget about it. It makes a much better day just to start out that way.
I love that. I'm gonna try that.
That'd be $5.
It'd be $5. Here's a tip. No, that's. I mean, we wake up and we're tired. We're cranky.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I'm out of creamer. Whatever it is, and we forget those things. A lot of the things we take for granted.
For you, Cassie, to be out of wine.
I don't care about the wine.
I'm teasing.
Actually, that's a blessing.
Mom, you got the wrong one.
Right.
No, seriously, no.
Don't take my martinis. But we forget, we've got friends who've lost children or who lost a job or whatever terrible thing. And man, are we lucky sometimes, and we forget.
Yeah.
We should be thankful.
Yeah. And it's the small things, Nate. Cassie, it's the small things. Like, honestly, I wake up and I say, God, thank you for the two vehicles that I have. One is a truck that I'm working on right now, fixing the back brakes on. The vehicle that I have that I drive every day. Okay, so I'm not freaking rich, I thank God for the two vehicles that I thank God for the house that I have and what it provides for my family. If my kids go broke tomorrow and they need a place to stay, guess what?
Yeah.
we can all live in that house together. We might not like each other at the end of the day.
Might not be happy about it.
Right. However, we can work at McDonald's and still afford to live in that house.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So you have to thank God for, and it might, like I said, some people thank the universe, some people thank Buddha, some people thank Yahweh. Personally, I'm a Christian, and that's the belief that I fall on. So I thank God.
It's a power greater than yourself.
Here's the thing: we all come, and this is a show for another day, and it's probably too deep for the 70%. I don't know, but we all come from a source of energy, and at the end of the day, that energy is what is guiding us. You know what I mean? So anyway, so back on track here.
We have 3 shows already just from Cassie. This is great. As a
there
producer,
you go.
I love this.
Yeah, we gotta let the little stuff go, Mike.
I know. I'm getting too deep here.
I'm with you. Well, no, I mean in general. I'm saying in general. All the things that we have to be thankful for. Those little things like creamer, or if you spill your coffee, or whatever it is, they don't matter so much.
No doubt. I agree.
I'm with you.
So, Cassie, thank you very much for joining us today on the 70% podcast.
Thank you.
I truly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Loved meeting you. Come back again.
You too.
Oh, we're definitely going to have to bring Cassie back, because Cassie has a lot of depth. I know right today we just skimmed upon her depth, but forget about it. I mean, we talked a little bit about her alcoholism.
That's another show.
No, I'm teasing. We
Just
talked a
for
little bit
fun.
about her. Yeah,
Let's
her
get
fun
Mom
stuff.
on too. She
Yeah.
sounds like a hoot.
She's crazy.
We talked
No,
about.
I love her. Never mind. She's still crazy, but I am too. I mean, I just, I admit it.
Yeah.
We talked about her fun side and stuff like that and stuff, but thank you very much for being on tonight, Cassie. I truly appreciate it. This is Mike Sewell, and this is the 70% podcast. Typically, Amy Alexander is with us, and she would normally say, thank you for joining the 70% podcast this evening. And I would typically chime in with saying, like, share, subscribe, and no doubt, enjoy your evening.